very clearly have elaborated your experience and perspective on relationship, but I wanted to go a little bit deeper and explore some of the nuances of scales of relationships and qualities of relationships within consciousness, of course. Maybe Swami, you could begin and
all right.
maybe
this when Hamid wrote to me, I was really thinking about it. I've never really spoken about this aspect of it at all. Yeah. And I was thinking, how do you bring to bear the light of this realization upon relationships? We have a motto in our organization, which is the Ramakrishna Order in India. Swami Vivekananda gave us this motto. It's like it says, for your own freedom and for the welfare of the world. Atmano mokshartham jagathitaya cha. For your own freedom and for the welfare of the world. And we often debate this. Why this and? Your own freedom and the welfare of the world. It goes all the way back to, I was just thinking when Jesus Christ was asked tell us what are the most important commandments. A rabbi told me there are 560 commandments, important commandments. So, which is the most important one? And Jesus said, love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and all thy might. You can imagine the disciples scribbling it down. Good, got it. Then Jesus said, and one more, love thy neighbor. Very interesting. The same and to Arjuna, Krishna, on the battlefield. Krishna says to Arjuna, what the essence of the teaching of the Gita is Mam Anusmara Yudhya in Sanskrit. It means contemplate me, keep your mind on me, God, me with a capital M, that is the Lord, and fight the battle of life. So the same and, this is what I wanted to share, that I came to realize after a long time that private spirituality is not very spiritual. So the whole question of relationship enters into it. What would you think?
So that, obviously, I must have that because, Krishna and Arjuna, they were two talking to each other.
Yes.
Although Krishna is non-dual, right? But he's talking to another, so there were two. So I think it might be helpful for many people here to understand, since Advaita Vedanta is discussed frequently here, and you know enough, I think, about the different lineages. How do different lineages look at what accounts for relationship? Where do the two come from? Since everything is one, yes. Like non-dual, everything is one, it's not two, right? Where does the two come from? So that would be an interesting thing. I'm interested in hearing it. I'm sure everybody here who've been hearing about everything is non-dual find out what's the basis for the relationship.
Right. And I find the difference between one and non-dual very interesting. One is it's just one reality.
Yeah.
But when you say non-dual, it says not two.
Right.
Already assuming a two.
Right.
The word two has already come there. The dual is already there. Which represents how we experience the world. We clearly experience the world as Hamid and Swami, the two. And there's so many people here. So the two is already a fact of our experience. And what all these spiritual traditions are teaching us is the truth about the two is non-dual. The truth about duality, the truth about the experienced duality is non-duality. And with that wisdom, you again come back to the two and bring the light of that oneness, that non-duality, to bear upon our experience of the two. If you say practically what it means.
Like, where did the two come from?
Where does the two come from?
How from the not two, where did the two come from? In Advaita Vedanta.
That is the question. In Advaita Vedanta, for example, that is the question. Yeah. And the answer is equally shocking. The answer is, did the two come at all?
Yeah.
It's like, suppose when we are dreaming,
Yeah.
and one person in your dream asks another person in the dream, where, if it's all one reality, where did the two of us come from? And you, who are the dreamer, if you are lucid dreaming, you might say, hey, wait a minute, there are not two here, there's only I. And I am this, and this, and this, all of this is appearing as the I. So, there are different answers, but the core philosophical answer in Advaita Vedanta, if you press these guys that tell me the exact truth in understandable language, they will say it did not happen. The two did not come. No more than, say from this table, suppose I say, here is a table, okay? And its reality is wood. Now if you say, oh, so there are two here. How did the table come from the wood? The answer is the table did not come from the wood. It's still wood. When I touch it, I don't say touch table, I say touch wood. So it is that non-dual reality right now. Substantially, now I'm going back to my Tibetan Buddhist training, substantially, in reality, metaphysically, ontologically, if you want to say, a second thing has not come. And yet it appears to be a second. And that's the beauty and joy of it. Yeah.
So does that mean the two is simply appearance, has no reality?
Yes. Is the second an appearance? Yes. If you would say, is it not real? There, the two steps which we went through.
Yeah.
If you went the first step, if you stop at the first step, I am the unchanging witness of a changing appearance, then it's like denying or sort of deprecating or downplaying the second. But if you go complete the Advaitic process, come to the second one, you realize that the second one, you do not say that it has no reality. It has, in fact, reality because it is none other than the real you. Its reality, it's like the classic snake and rope. The rope appears as a snake. Now, as a snake, it's not real. But will you say there's nothing there? No, the rope is there. So in, say, devotional language, you might say, so is all this an appearance, all of it is false? No, it is God. Divinity is manifesting in all of these ways. One good way of putting it would be Shankara, Advaita Vedanta, staunch Advaitin, who says Brahman alone is real, the world is false.
Yeah.
You would expect that person to say, all this is appearance. The second is nothing, it's an appearance. But when he is in conversation with these other guys I'm studying now, the Tibetan Buddhists, the Shunyavada, the Nagarjuna guys, he says, we do not accept error without ground. We do not accept error without ground. That it is all false. What is real? Oh, nothing is real. It's all false all the way down. No. That cannot be true. The very fact that there is an appearance means there must be a reality. What is appearing? Very fact that there is a lie must mean there's a truth. It cannot be lies all the way down. So it is God who is appearing as the world, if you want to put it in devotional language. Brahman alone, the reality alone, the non-dual alone, which is appearing as the duality. Yeah, there's a long way of saying that if you ask, is there no reality to it? The answer is both yes and no. As we experience it, it is not real in itself, but from... Okay, here's something I remember just now. Ramana Maharshi, he says something stunning. He says, who can say that the world is real? Who can say that the world... Remember, he's a non-dualist, Advaitin. So those guys who say Brahman alone is real, the world is false, who can say the world is real? He says only the enlightened person can say the world is real, because he's saying reality. Usually the way we understand it is that the enlightened person sees, oh, there's some Brahman which is real and this world is false. No, not at all. He says that the world is real. Sometimes it seems to me, then from that perspective, on this side of enlightenment, we are not really seeing reality. We are sort of living in a half-awake, half-dreaming state.
So I was wondering, the Ramakrishna order. I remember reading about Ramakrishna said, I don't want to just be sugar, I want to taste sugar.
Yes.
What did he mean by that?
That's a beautiful thing. That's true. Sri Ramakrishna taste sugar and being sugar. So he would pray. He was a devotee of the divine feminine, Kali. And he would pray, Mother, don't make me like those dry non-dualists, the Advaitins who would visit, who are just doing logic and philosophy and saying the world is nothing. And he would say, I don't want to be sugar, I want to taste sugar. Though, the opposite thing also he said. He asked his chief disciple who became Vivekananda, who came to this country. He was a young boy at that time, Naren. He said, suppose you are a bee. There is a bowl of honey, or you're a fly and there's a bowl of honey. And would you want to jump into it, or what would you do? And Vivekananda, he said, I would sit carefully at the ledge and at the edge and sip honey. I don't want to fall into it, I may die. And then Ramakrishna said, foolish boy, this is the ocean of honey of immortality. You don't die when you fall into it, you become immortal. So he used the example both ways. One thing which may unlock this mystery is this. He had a concept which he called Vijnana. Jnana means knowledge. Vijnana means specialized knowledge, higher knowledge, more complete knowledge. Wisdom, knowledge here, of course, he meant enlightenment. So he said it's like climbing up the roofs of a house, climbing up the stairs. You leave the first floor behind, you leave the stairs behind, you come to the roof of the house. And having reached the top of the house, you suddenly realize everything that you left behind is made of the same thing which the roof is made of. The roof is made of the same concrete and brick and mortar, and the stairs and the different floors you have left behind. You look back upon what you left behind, it is all the same thing. Now that he calls Vijnana. And there one can actually taste sugar. You can be sugar and taste sugar also. Would you say that?
Well, I was always wondering what it meant, because I read it years ago. And the way I usually understand it is that you can be sugar, which means you can be the true nature or the true self.
Yes.
With all this delight. But I also can taste it, mean I can a particular taste organ, because you need a taste organ to taste. Yes. So I said, but to taste, you have to be some kind of particularization.
Yes.
Of the boundless or formless.
Correct, yes.
To taste. So I took it to mean that he doesn't only want to be the infinite, he wants also to be a human being who can experience what human being experience.
Yes.
And so what I was wondering, being a human being, I know in your writer, you mentioned Jiva. There's Jiva, Jiva Atman. There are many expressions in Hinduism and Advaita Vedanta about the consciousness, the human consciousness. Because when you say everything, the two never came, that is true about everything, chairs, the walls, and human beings. But that doesn't differentiate between a human being and a chair. How is a human being different from the chair?
Yes.
I imagine that's where the concept jiva or something comes from.
True.
And that's I was wondering, how will you help us understand why is that formulated?
Yes.
Yeah.
There we need to go back to something called the two truths.
Yeah.
Which Advaita Vedanta, a lot of Advaita Vedantins will hate me for saying this, but as far as I can see, they have unashamedly borrowed it from the Buddhists. So when you go back to Nagarjuna, about 2,000 years ago, Nagarjuna himself came about 500 years after the Buddha.
Yeah.
He says in his Mula Madhyamaka Karika that the Buddha taught two truths.
Yeah.
Paramarthika, the absolute truth, and Samvritti, the lower, you can translate it as the lower empirical, the deceptive, the hiding. The Vedantins call it the Vyavaharika, transactional truth. And the amazing thing about the two truths is, they're exactly one. They are actually not two. Yeah. Now, once we realize the higher truth, for example, in Vedanta, it would be, I am that non-dual consciousness. And everything is an expression of this same non-dual consciousness. But the appearance still continues. Three things continue. Even after enlightenment, three things will still continue. The world will continue to appear exactly the same. In Hindi, the monks in the Himalayas, they have a nice phrase. They say, Gyan tod phod nahi karta hai. Literally it means knowledge, enlightenment doesn't destroy anything in the world. It doesn't smash things in the world. It just shows you what it is actually. For the first time you're beginning to see. So after enlightenment, eyes will continue to function and you will see this thing. Ears will continue to function and you will hear. Tongue, all instruments of knowledge will continue to function and they will keep giving you the same information. But now you are seeing it completely transformed because of your understanding or your realization, let's say, of what underlies the whole thing. So appearances continue, one. Second, use will continue, utility will continue. You will feel thirsty, a glass of water will satisfy your thirst before enlightenment, after enlightenment also. So transactions continue. So I said, don't worry, after being enlightened, you go out of this, will my car still be there or will it be all Brahman, non-dual? No, everything will be there and everything will work. And third, which is important for philosophers, language continues. Nominally, it's also the same. You can still use. Why it's important is, I have often seen people get carried away, enthusiasts. I have received emails. I, who am pure consciousness in the body and mind of Mr. Mishra, I am writing to I myself in the form of Swami Sarvapriyananda. You don't have to do that. Just say. So language continues. Form continues, use continues, language continues. But you realize that it is the same reality which is appearing in all of these ways and that it's non-dual from you in an absolute sense. So that this two-truth structure, it enables you to...
Is there, in the two-truth, I understand the two-truth in Buddhism too, is there a value thing about the two-truth? One of them is more real than the other. When you talk about two-truth, because in Buddhism, the two-truth, one is the fundamental, absolute truth, the other one is the relative truth, which is passing and all of that. It's not as real.
Yes.
You see. Is it the same thing in Advaita Vedanta?
Almost exactly the same thing. Yeah. But what happens is, at the beginning, when we inevitably, we can't help it but think of it as two different things. Yeah. So there is God or Brahman or Nirvana, which is really valuable, really nice, really cool, and the thing I want to get, that's one. And here is this one, which all the books are telling me it is, as I just said, it is changing, subject to death and disease and disappearance and disappointment and loss. And this is somehow lower and worse and bad. We cannot help but make this distinction. So this is where we begin. But I get the sense both from my study of Tibetan Buddhism, Indo-Tibetan Buddhism, and Advaita Vedanta, is that on the other side of enlightenment, it's not like that at all. It is exactly one truth, but irradiated with what is not clear to us right now. Everything shines with that divinity. So it's still old age will be there, disease will be there, death will be there, disappointment will be there. At the same time, it is true that everything is shining in the light of the divine. So that is centered in that. I think that's where you taste sugar. Mm. The devotees have a very beautiful word for this. Leela, divine play. Mm-hmm. Divine play. Leela. Leela, yes. Leela is divine play. I think it's God, it's supposed to be God's Leela, the divine play of God. But from a non-dual perspective, it is your Leela also. Right now, it does not seem to be Leela. It seems to be a terrible truth, like a nightmare which we are struggling with. But the reality is that it is actually Leela.
Yeah, I don't know yet if I got really the meaning, the import of jiva. So let me put it in more experiential terms.
Yes.
So we could discuss it. I'm very curious. I read the things and study and listen to teachers. And them give it different interpretation. As you know, there are many lineages, and you know many of the lineages help us, decipher it. Like I can experience myself as the unchanging that is not separate from all the changes, right? and I'm seeing everything and everybody is my manifestation,
Yes.
right? And I'm formless, boundless, all of that, and the form of my body, your body, all manifestation, all of that.
Yes.
Can experience that. That's one way for me is realization. But there is a subtle shift that can happen, which is that one thing can extend itself out into the manifestation without changing itself as a particular individual who talks to you as a particular individual.
Yes.
So I am the infinite, but manifesting myself as a particular
Yes.
in order to say something to you.
Yes.
Because if I'm just the infinite,
Yeah.
with no particular, I can't talk,
Yes.
right? But sometimes I could talk while being just the infinite,
Yes.
and then it's like I'm not really talking to any person in particular. But
Yes.
if I want to be a relational discussion,
Yes.
then this infinite somehow, without changing its nature, particularizes and becomes, and he is looking at you,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
He is looking at you, Swami, right? And so you're a Swami, and I'm me. We're too particular, but we are expression of the same real thing.
Yes.
And I wonder, how is the concept Shiva, not Shiva, Jiva, fits in that? Is that what the attempt of saying Jiva is the particularization, or is it something else?
Yes. There you have this. This is actually the most fundamental question. How does the one become the many?
Yeah.
How does the infinite become the finite? And you have a vast range of philosophies in India, which go from the absolutely dualistic.
Yeah.
God exists separate from all of us, and God, through the power of nature, Prakriti, has created all of us. A very dualistic conception.
Yeah.
And you have to attain to God, live in the abode of God by devotion and surrender. A very dualistic approach. To the other extreme of Advaita Vedanta, one only exists. Ekam eva advitiyam. Literally, it means one only without a second. You might say, okay, good for the one. What about me? You are that one. Tattvamasi, that thou art. So that's an extreme other hard position.
Yeah.
But in between, there is a whole range of interesting positions. One, let me share a couple with you. One is Vishishtadvaita, which says both are true. It's not that there is one reality and the rest is appearance of that reality, which is Advaita. Rather, it's an organic whole. So, the divinity is the whole of which we are parts.
Yeah.
Sentient and insentient parts. We are like one organic unity of the universe, which is a very popular idea actually today, especially. But that's still not Advaita. That is, it's called qualified monism. Another one is called the philosophy of Kashmiri Shaivism.
Yes.
So that's very popular, incredible. There they say the many is the vibration of the one. It's not false. It's not an appearance. It is the one. So they say Shiva vibrates into this universe. So they have a very sophisticated, almost I would say over-sophisticated development of this philosophy, where in fact the most beautiful expression I found was not in Kashmiri Shaivism but in Alan Watts. You would have seen him.
I might have seen it.
He was right here, right to San Francisco.
I like Alan.
In the 60s and 70s.
Yes.
He starts his book. His most famous book is easy to remember. It's called The Book. And the subtitle is The Taboo Against Knowing Who You Are. You can just look it up. I think at one time it was very popular. And he starts the book with this idea of Shiva appearing as all. So he says, it's a child story, but it's so instructive and beautiful. He says that in the beginning, God alone existed forever and ever. And existing forever and ever very soon gets to be a drag. So God became bored. And all of this has sort of scriptural, textual foundation actually. He tells it like a child story, but it's so beautiful. So God became bored. God wanted to play. But he didn't have a friend. There was nobody else. But God, being God, is very clever. So he thought about it for a long time and hit upon a plan. Whom will God play with to pass time, So God decided to be not God. God decided to pretend to be not God. Now there are two. God and God pretending to be not God. But here's the problem. God, being God, is exceptionally good at what he, she, it does. So when God decided to pretend to be not God, did such a good job of it, that totally forgot that he was God. So now God pretending to be not God, having forgotten that he's God, is searching for God. And this is the University of God. So I really like that story. It speaks to children, and like all good children's stories, it speaks much more to grown-ups too. Yeah, that's the Kashmiri Shaiva approach, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. This is delightful conversation. I wonder if in your tradition, and also Hamid in the tradition of Diamond Approach, if you could speak about embodiment of being, or there is the conceptual understanding, and is there more layers to, in one of your talks I heard you speaking beautifully about simmering that understanding through every cell of this body, through every breath we take, if you can give a taste, little bit of that kind of full embodiment of being.
True. Vivekananda says this, that what we are talking about, this non-dual insight, he says stay with it. He says his words are assimilated. Think about it, meditate upon it till it tingles with every drop of your blood. So that's what staying with it means. Now, I was just thinking, what would it mean? It would have to be expressed. The way Vivekananda put it, he said religion or spirituality is the manifestation of the divinity already within us. Each soul is potentially divine. Now that struck me. When you study traditional Advaita Vedanta, you don't actually, it's not exactly that language. Because if you, from an Advaita Vedanta point of view, it's not potentially divine. You are divine. And it's not a manifestation of divinity, it's a knowledge of divinity. But Vivekananda very specifically, he said, and it goes a lot towards what you were saying at the end of your talk, that in Western mysticism, it's not so much of realizing the transcendent and staying with the transcendent as developing the person, as spiritualizing the person. Yeah. And Vivekananda often speaks in that language. Yeah. He says manifestation of the divinity is not just knowing about it, not just knowing that I'm non-dual, but has it solved my problems first? Is it expressed in my thinking, in my speech, and in my behavior? So this is what he calls the manifestation of the divinity. And by this, what he means is four things. One is the knowledge, the feeling of oneness with others. A positive psychologist, he says, look at the body language of the Dalai Lama. He keeps doing this. He says this expresses a person who has an inner oneness with everything. So a kind of gathering together, of embracing the world. It just speaks to something that's within, that's being expressed like that. So that inner knowledge of oneness, but a reality. You actually feel one with others. That's one expression. The second expression would be love. Hamid was talking about this so eloquently just before this session. That manifesting, being love and manifesting love without any discrimination of, this person or that person, me or mine, I and mine. No discrimination of that. Third would be attention. This is a very big subject, but what we attend to, that we, in the end, we tend to feel one with that, we tend to love that. In fact, there was this beautiful experiment done. It's called the Good Samaritan experiment. It was done in some American university a few years ago, where a group of divinity school, I'm in the Harvard Divinity School right now for this year, so it was in some other divinity school, where these divinity school students were asked to read the parable of the Good Samaritan, and another group was asked to read some other parable, and they were told that you go to this classroom, there will be students waiting there, you give a sermon based on the parable. Now remember, we all know the parable of the Good Samaritan, who helped, who was really a good neighbor to them. So they read that about helping somebody, And as they walked across the lawn to the next classroom where they're supposed to give a sermon, there was this guy sitting on the bench who was pretending, who would be doubled over in pain. As you pass by, he would go, oh, like this. And they were observing to see how many of them would stop and help. They're all going to give a talk on the Good Samaritan. Almost none of them did. Why? They realized there was a control group, of course. They realized that it's not so much a question of what your knowledge is. It's those who pay attention to the suffering and the person in front, love comes automatically. And there are biological, neurological reasons to this also. So attention is very important. The knowledge of oneness, the feeling of love, and attending to what or who is in front of you. And finally, service. That my very existence is, one Swami used to say, he defined spirituality very beautifully. Swami Ranganathanandaji of revered memory, he was the president of our order. He said, what is spirituality? When I close my eyes in meditation, I find peace within. When I open my eyes, my attitude is, what can I do for you? So this is spirituality. Yeah, so I was thinking, these are the ways in which we can manifest that knowledge of non-duality. Hamid?
Yeah. I appreciate, you illuminating us about these matters, which I wondered about. I do wonder about them. I study them too.
Oh, you studied?
I study many of these things that
of course,
talk about.
All of this.
And I hear those Sanskrit terms, which is sometimes translated. I don't know if they're translated accurately or not. But I will get at some point to what you started with today about Buddhism and Hinduism, about self and no self. I would like to have a discussion about that and tell you my understanding, because I studied both traditions. But I want to get into the question about the individual and the ground, the ground of unity or non-duality, and the individual, and the question of love. We talked about love.
Yes.
It is obvious that the ground or the non-changing, called Brahman, sometimes called Satchitananda.
Satchitananda, correct.
Ananda is joy, which
Bliss,
includes
joy.
love and all of that, right? You wonder, what's love for? If there's only, the Brahman doesn't need love.
No.
What's love for?
Yeah.
It's love for individual beings.
Yes.
So obviously it's implicit in the very being of Brahman that there will be individual beings.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's already there. It's part of its potential, it's part of its truth. Because of that, I don't see them as just passing things. Just the fact that they change and pass, for me, doesn't make them, for me, less real than the Brahman.
Yes.
Because they are the Brahman. And as you say, Jiva is Brahman.
Yes.
Right? So each individual is really although the individual changes, but the consciousness within it doesn't change.
Yes.
And for me, change doesn't devalue the thing.
Right.
For some reason, many of the non-dual teachers, they think of changes, it's an illusion. But in the West, when you hear the word illusion, that's how the word Maya is translated. Illusion means made up by a person, mind.
Yes.
You say, so why is that using the word illusion? It's inaccurate. I'm sure Vedanta, Advaita doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean somebody's mind created this illusion, right? But for me, the fact that there is love means there are going to be individuals.
Yes.
And that the individual is inherent in the timeless truth. And that is the ground of non-duality. And one way of saying it, I like an expression that one of the great Sufi masters said, Ibn Arabi, you probably read Ibn Arabi, the grand sheikh of the Sufis. He talked about God and the soul, and they talk about the soul. And what he said is that God needs the soul as much as the soul needs God. He said, the soul needs God to exist, to be. And God needs the soul to see and to know. To see and to know.
To see and to know. Okay.
Without the soul, God can't see and know, because God cannot see anonymously without a being that can see and know, without mind and cognition, right? So for him, there are two sides. They're both important, you see. And that's why when I hear people saying the individual is an illusion, it demeans the individual, it demeans all human beings. Because, as you said in your write-up, the individual, the jiva, is the ultimate, although appearing as an individual.
Yes.
You know, like Rama or Krishna appeared as individuals, although they're not individual.
Yes.
So the individual, a being, an individual that acts and interacts and responds and lives and all of that, like without it, we won't know that there is a Brahman.
Could I
Brahman wouldn't know itself. I mean,
yes.
I mean, we might as well not be anything.
Yes.
You see?
I always try to take a takeaway from any interaction, event. I got mine today, just now.
Yeah.
So what I got from Hamid just now is this. He made a beautiful point here, just in passing. I mean, I'm sure it's common knowledge for him, but it was an insight for me. If you're talking about the transcendent, and your conception of the transcendent includes love, bliss, love, whichever way you put it, then the transcendent must also have integrated within it the individual, because love doesn't make sense without individual.
Yeah.
So the concept of the individual is integral to the concept of the absolute. That's what I'm taking away, and that's a very beautiful idea. But yes, but as to what you said, you're right, that sometimes non-dual teachers, they emphasize the first part, what I said, 2 steps to the not to.
Yeah.
And if you notice, in my 20 minutes, I did about 18 minutes of the first step, and the second step I did it in 2 minutes, partly because of reasons of time, partly because the second step is also difficult. So I did 18 minutes of the first step, which is actually not the important step. This is the one which Hamid is talking about, is that when you keep distancing, separating, not the world, not the body, not the mind, not the other. Now the first step is essential, but it's not the important step. First step is essential because one must, in some way or the other, whatever way possible, catch hold of the divine. Get a feel for the divine, grasp the divine. Do it through, as Vivekananda said, do it through devotion, do it through service, do it through meditation, or by philosophy like this. In any one way, get hold of the divine. But then after that, the second step comes, where you see whatever you had discarded before in your headlong rush to the divine. You see all of that is the divine also. That must come. Otherwise, it's incomplete. You're right. Absolutely, you're right. Yeah. Let me put it in another way. Do you have time?
You have 20 minutes. I would love to also take a couple of questions after that.
And then we should go for the questions,
No, finish, please.
The question is, you put it in a philosophical way. If somebody asks this question, if Brahman is the only reality, why is there anything else at all? I mean, why even Maya? So, what does this question mean actually? It speaks to what Hamid was talking about. This question means that there should be nothing, but that seems to be a sort of impoverished understanding of Brahman.
Yeah.
Now you have these two, here's the beautiful thing. You have these two options. There could be something or there could be nothing. And in our lives, our experiences, every day, you see both. In your waking and your dream, we experience something. And in our deep sleep, we experience. The word experience has to be used. Nothing. So that which we experience, the object of experience, cycles back between nothing and something. Deep sleep and expressed universe. Creation and dissolution of the universe. But the watcher of this, the ground of this, is constant. You put it in devotional language, dualistic religious language, or philosophical language, or our day-to-day experience of waking, dreaming, deep sleep. Yes. So I just wanted to throw it out there. We'll take questions.
Let's take some, yes, right there.
Thank you, Swami, for being here. Just taking off from the question that was asked before about the breakout.
Could you tell us your name or something?
What's your name?
I'm Shiva Kumar from India. So, what is the role of the guru in this whole experience of enlightenment? Ramana Maharshi says that only someone who has can give. Only if I have something, only I can give. Right. So, how easy or how difficult it is to realize this non-dual experience with yourself? Is it possible, or do you feel that without the guru it's possible, or the guru is absolutely essential?
Yes. Straight answer. Guru is essential. Essential, of course. How it works out in our lives could be very different. You could come to the talk like this, listen to Hamid speaking, and you could get that insight. And then in that way it would work out that Hamid is the guru who taught you that thing. But a living source is, we have seen it. It is throughout history that there is, and then that develops into a lineage, that guru and the sishya, the teacher and the taught. Look, the experience I'm having now, very strange. I'm, for certain reasons, for 1 year I'll be at Harvard. All my classmates are half my age. And there's this guy who was saying that I'm 28, he's a British young man from England, 28, am I too old for this? I said, I'm 50. You're not too old for this. But listen, these guys are smart people. They're among the most intelligent people picked out from not only the United States, from all over the world. Every bit of what we are learning is available on the internet. Yet they have to come to class and listen to a professor saying things which they know already. They still have to listen. They still have to interact with a living teacher. I am benefiting. I am learning the Upanishads, which I've been studying for the last 30 years of my life. I'm learning it again, all over again, and I'm benefiting from it. I'm learning already within the last 1 or 2 months, I have made a few breakthroughs in my understanding of Shunyavada, of Nagarjuna and others, which I had been reading them for years, but I had never really understood until it was told to me. He's not a spiritual teacher. He is a world-renowned professor of Tibetan Buddhism. But we hear it from it again and again, hour after hour in the class, and then you suddenly see, oh, I see. So a teacher, one of our Swamis put it very, Calcutta, there are pickpockets. And the pickpockets have master pickpockets who teach them how to pickpocket. He said, if those guys need teachers, you are talking about realizing the infinite. Why would you not need a teacher? Yeah.
I think I appreciate that. I think that's very true, and I think it's a good response. But one thing I wanted to add to it is that a teacher is not somebody who just teaches, but who is an exemplar, who has to live what they teach.
Absolutely.
They need to not have only the liberation, but they live the liberation, and meaning living the liberation doesn't mean for me, doesn't mean they're just alive and they're being fed by their students.
Yes.
For me, to live liberation means walk, talk, interact, have sex, drive a car, all of that as the Brahmin.
Yes.
You see, for me, that's a living teacher, and that's really a true guru. And fundamentally, the guru is the true nature within us, is the spirit itself. I mean, for me, I thought I learned with many, but my true guru is the truth.
I mean, I really cannot add to that.
Everybody says that, ultimately.
Yeah.
And I want to come back to before we finish, to the question of Buddhism and...
Yes,
yeah,
please.
Because you start with that. That was interesting. Because
I don't know how many of you are interested.
Yeah,
I am very interested.
Because it's about the self and no self.
Yes.
And the way I understand it, you see, in my own path, in my experience, I came upon, at some point, the awakening and realization of being the changeless, eternal, timeless God, and felt that is me. That is what I am, as the true self. And then from there, first I was seeing, I'm witnessing everything, and everything happens within me, and at some point that everything is just me, a part of me. That's for me a recognition of the ground as self. But I also have another experience, you see, which is in the experience of the ground as self it goes with the Satchitananda, with this, which is Sat, is truth or being. There is a sense of being, of existence. Buddhism negates existence,
Yes.
basically. And sometimes it's the same experience, actually,
Yes.
except there is a flip side to it. Sometimes I experience the same thing, but the feeling of self is not there.
Yes.
No, and the feeling of self specifically is an affective identity.
Right.
I.
Yes.
You know, Ramana Maharshi says, I. The I, and he kept saying the Buddhists are nihilists. For me, for the Buddhists, they don't emphasize that. The I is gone.
Yes.
It's the same thing, except the affect, the feeling, the recognition, it is an I. There's no I. And the way I see the difference, the reason why there's no I for the Buddhists, is that for them, it is not Satchitananda. The first word, there's consciousness and bliss, the same, but the word is emptiness. Instead of Sat, it's Shunyata.
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 Emptiness.
Emptiness.
Yes.
And the way I understand emptiness, in my experience of it, it is almost the opposite of being. It's like non-being. Like I'm non-being, non-existence. That is the nature of the awareness.
Yes.
Like the awareness can have the nature of being or can have the nature of non-being, but it is the same awareness. And in the teaching I teach, I differentiate between these two. The awareness where its nature is being are called consciousness.
Yes.
And the awareness that its nature is non-being, I call pure awareness. The pure consciousness, pure awareness. And they're slightly distinguished for me, and I can be one or the other,
Right.
you see. And they're both equal, both equally liberating, but they are different. They're not exactly the same. I don't want to say, I find it's not useful to say that the Buddhist realization of Dharmakaya is the same thing as the Indian realization of Brahman. It might be experiencing the same, but they're experiencing it differently. The actual phenomenology of experience is different.
Yes.
And that's my experience, and I've been with Tibetan lamas and got the time, and I realized, yeah, I know that. There's no I. But it does not conflict, doesn't deny the other one. For me, I have the other one. It's just as liberating. So for me, they're both true, but they're both distinct truths.
Yes.
You know, that the timeless can appear as a self or a non-self. Yes. It is free. I mean, why does it have to be one or the other?
We need you there at Harvard. We need you to come and
wish I was there.
speak to the professors there. They are so
I would have asked that question.
virulently against each other. That guy is wrong and this is right. No. This is exactly, I totally agree with you, but you put it very beautifully.
But I was wondering, at Veda Vedanta,
We have time.
oh, question. Okay, let's go.
Yes.
Question, yes.
Hi. I just want to say I so appreciate this conversation. This has been the question at the heart of my lived exploration. The question of Adam and his rib. The question of, is manifestation just the divine's dirty little sister, right? Lesser. So I don't have anything to say or anything to ask except just such an appreciation of this conversation.
Thank you. There's so many hands up there.
We're enjoying it too. I'm enjoying the Swami's in company.
My name is Punita, and it's an honor, Swamiji, to have you live here. I have a question about having no questions, similar to that thread. I've been stalking you online literally with your YouTubes and podcasts, and I always felt that when I would see you live, I would have all these questions that the live audience was asking in one of those webinars and YouTube videos. And right here, I'm sitting in front of you, and I have no question. And I'm just wondering, I have heard about people having this experience in front of Ramana Maharshi, where they go with a laundry list of questions, and they just draw a blank. And I'm just wondering, not having any questions, when you feel that you have lots of questions, what is that?
That's very important. You just stay with that. That's the heart of it. You stay with that. That's very beautifully put. You stay with that, and the answers to the questions will come. You'll get different answers to the same questions over a lifetime. And they are good, but they are not central. The central is this heart. You stay with that, where you have that ground, that stillness at the heart of the storm, let's put it that way. Yeah. And you know that it's all right. And of course the questions will come, and you will seek, you will find books and teachers and answers, and you will learn and grow. And at the same time, you'll know that what they're all talking about, the heart is always with you, and it is you. Very good.
Thank you both, my teachers. As far as I know, Hamid's favorite hadith about a lonely God who made us, King David asked, "Why did you make us, Lord? You didn't need us." And Allah answers, "I was a hidden treasure and wanted to be known." And in Kashmir Shaivism, I understand that love created this and loved the creation so much that love entered into every particle to rejoice and play. But you, Zaya, I see you manifest with love this. So I'd like to know how you hold love.
I bow to this moment and to this wisdom, and I just feel we're so blessed to be at this moment in time, to be able to receive the wisdom of centuries of seers. That's love. That's love that I receive every moment. Yeah. Thank you.
You know, I remember reading Jnana Deva.
Yes.
You know about, he was contemporary of Shankara, or before him, Jnana Deva.
Jnanadeva was, I think, a little later.
A little later. And he was an Advaita Vedantist.
Yes.
But he was also
A yogi, a devotee.
and devotee, a bhakti kind of. And his view of the world, the creation, it's love. The love of the Brahman is what makes things happen.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes.
It's not just simply it makes it happen.
Yes.
It is love. For him, love is a very important thing, which I felt. It's good to see that Advaita Vedanta has many lineages. And I know, you know many of them. That's why I like to listen to your videos, because you talk about different kinds, like when you talk about Maya, about this lineage says Maya this, and this lineage says Maya. There are so many interpretations.
I gave 2 talks on the way of love, devotion, and somebody wrote back saying that I feel betrayed. Even you're talking about the way of love. I thought you're a dedicated non-dualist, Advaitin. But that's a very narrow idea of Advaita Vedanta. Yes.
And that's the part that I myself appreciate in you talking about Maya, because here in the West, people take Maya to mean illusion, which means man-made. I doubt that Advaita Vedanta takes
No,
it that
never.
way.
In fact, there is a lot of polemics between Shankara and one school of the Buddhists, the Vijnanavadi, the mind-only school, which is rejected both by Shankara and by, say, Nagarjuna's followers, the Madhyamaka school. So it is important. This world, if you take it as an illusion, it's not an illusion of our minds. The way I dream up my dreams at night, I am not dreaming you up. It's not like that.
Yeah.
If you think about a cosmic mind, the mind of God dreaming us up, that's a different thing. But not our individual minds. Yes, that part is true.
That's what I thought. I appreciate that.
One more
Yeah.
question.
Hi, my question in the spirit of the last talk on the 3 or 4 kinds of love that you mentioned, and this topic of spirituality as it is infused into love, is individual need diminish those or make those less possible? And is it possible to have no individual need to experience those various kinds of love?
What would you say?
Well, at the beginning, it appears as an individual need because we all need as individual. When we're not connected with our true nature, we are separated from it, and hence that appears as need. And it needs as of love. And it's an important part about love that we not only love, that we can receive love. Because many of us don't allow ourselves to receive love because we feel as individuals we're not lovable or something wrong with us. But as we connect with our true nature, with our timeless nature, there's no need. Those loves are expression of what we are. It doesn't come out as of a need, you see. The need is still in the place of the soul that is still an ego-bound. That wording, because in liberation there is no need, because you can't say Brahman has needs.
I would tend to agree. I'd just add that from individual need to the level of love for all, it's an evolution. Even if we start with our own need, nature, God, whatever you call it, it'll teach us. The wiser ones, the more mature ones, learn fast and move on faster, expand faster. The less mature ones suffer. And things are, through unhappiness, or even if things are going very well, still there's a deep existential emptiness to all of it. That forces us out of our individual needs into letting people in, including.
Thank you. I wonder, we only have a minute and a half. If each one of you could reflect for a moment, it's a runaway realization, right? It never ends. On your path, on your journey, what is the most, the realization that you feel you're on the edge? Or what is it at the moment, at this moment in time, that is very palpable on your individual journey as a revelation? Do you feel like sharing?
Well,
or how is the teacher in this moment appearing in your life?
yes. One thing I wanted to add to the question about the guru, traditionally in the Upanishads, there is actually a description of the guru. It means Shrotriya Akamahata Brahmanishta. That means a person who knows the lineage, so can actually teach. Second, has an exemplar, as he said, has no personal axe to grind. It's purely out of a inspired, loving way that he gives. And third, must be dedicated, literally Brahmanishta means dedicated to Brahman. Not a part-time spiritual teacher, which is like a hobby and I do something else. My main thing is I'm going to be a tech billionaire and a part-time guru. Nothing, could be a genuinely spiritual person, but a trustworthy spiritual person is a person who is completely dedicated to the spiritual life, living his or her life, no doubt about it, but centered in spirituality, let's put it this way. Yeah. About that which you asked, I think right at this time, two things, this might seem to be contradictory, but let's put it very briefly this way, what we can take away. One, it's all right. You are all right. Don't worry about it. Second, move on. Move forward. This might seem contradictory, but they are the same truth. Go forward. Sri Ramakrishna would say, go forward. And while going forward, not hunted, hounded by the demons of our psyche, know that it's all right. You are one with God forever. All of us are. It's perfectly all right. And yet keep moving. Yeah.
You know, we've been talking about non-duality, because science, non-dual, and the perspective of non-duality and the individual and all of that, which is an important part of the teaching, or the path I'm on. But this path also has other realization besides dual and non-dual. Because in the path, you know, we see that dual and non-dual is a conceptual dichotomy. Dual is the opposite of non-dual. And there are ways of realization that I've known where I'm neither self nor no self, neither dual nor non-dual. I know all of those, but I'm not any of those. And not only I'm not any of those, there isn't one to be anything, to be or not to be. Both of those. And so moving on, and that was one way for me to move on, is to see that our spirituality is so rich. Our spiritual nature is so rich. India brought in 1,000 years ago the recognition of Brahman. But there are other teaching where Brahman doesn't really figure in their spirituality. There are other things. There are other ways of liberation. And I want us to be, some people here might be aware of being free and liberated without it being non-dual or dual. Doesn't mean non-dual is not beautiful, not true, non-number. It is, in my experience. But also, I can be, I don't know, I can't even say the word I or can, or none of that, you see. It's more like nobody here talking. Not even the self, or no self. So I'll just leave that as a little bit extra.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for this rich conversation. Thank you for your
Zaya.
presence.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.